Yes. Hello, I'm Dr. Chris Lamont, and I've facilitated several classes and webinars, but right now I'm facilitating a class called Wellness Code, which is a program I put together. Uh, and and we have regular chat sessions where students get to answer questions. And then in addition, I get email questions. And when I get the same question from 4 or 5 students, I kind of like to put it into this format here so that we've got so that they can listen to it a couple of times if they're confused on it. Uh, it's it's interesting. Growth process is always very interesting. Anytime we're moving in a direction that is unknown, then we don't really feel very comfortable. We're apprehensive. We're looking for something familiar. So the question is this, very simply: uh, why does growth seem to go in plateaus? Why does learning seem to go in plateaus? Right? There's actually a lot of research on that from a multitude of different uh, levels of looking at it. We do learn in plateaus. There's a learning curve that goes with inside the body. We actually learn, kind of super learn in the beginning of something new, and it flattens out and it goes into cycles. So that's part of it from the world of psychology that we can look at, that I'm sure you guys probably are familiar with. But it seems to be, the question goes into a little deeper, and I think the depth of the question that gets framed to me from a multitude of students depends on their pattern or rhythm that they show up with in consciousness. Uh, some people show up and feel like they have to endure something for a long period before they finally get it. And so that's what we call an endurance pattern. It's just a pattern of how they uh, blink in and out of consciousness. Other people with different patterns are a little different. So some people come back and say, why does it seem I don't get something? And then I abandon it. And then I come back to it later and then I get it. So these are really all more or less the same questions. The difference between that is just simply pattern, right? That you operate from. Uh, it, there are also lots of books out there on meta patterns and data on that if you really wanted to research it. But it's just the nature of how a human operates. It's really, really ultimately very simple. You don't get something. The traditional thing is like algebra with kids. They don't get A plus B equals C. They might get 2 plus 2 is 4, but they don't get A plus B equals C. So the ability to look at an application is where they're having a problem. They have a problem with algebra. They're having a problem with application of putting something into a formula, allowing something to represent something. Our strength as humans is allowing something to represent something. Our whole language system is based on that. A sound represents a certain symbol, which represents a certain meaning or significance. So that's the way we're set up and where we operate, right? Just look around and you can observe that. So those are the pieces unfolding for us. The heart of this, I think, also comes into the laws of thermodynamics, which I won't go into. Science is kind of a hobby with me because I started out in electronic engineering, so I've always kind of I had an interest in science and an interest in psychology, and I couldn't decide which way to go, and so I went into the science end of it, thinking that was the way I wanted to go, and then somewhere in the midst of all that, I changed directions. But anyway, that's and I'm sure some of you have done the same thing in life. That's what we do, right? So when we start to look at it, you're in a state of balance always. Some type of balance, right? You have muscles that balance your body out. On every level, there's a balance. You have stories that balance things out. The only thing that puts us out of balance is intuition. Intuition is a reserve of familiar references. So it's called inductive reasoning. And it's a shortcut for us. We can say, what do I want for lunch? Well, I'll just get a cheeseburger. That's my standard. And then you order your cheeseburger. Or if you're in a mood of trying something novel, maybe you'll get the Reuben sandwich, or maybe you'll get something that you've never tried before and something different. Depends on your mood and temperament. It depends on how much you can override that familiar intuitive drive, which always runs in there, right? So it's designed to do exactly what laws of thermodynamics, it's designed to conserve energy. It wants to make a shortcut so you don't have to think about it and burn up a lot of energy. If we were indecisive in everything, we'd drive ourselves and our friends all nuts, right? So we just simply come back, and this is a routine. This is a routine. Those learned routines help produce packages or states. They're based on familiar, they're improved upon, and we can operate from different templates or states. It makes it far more efficient. So those are the laws of thermodynamics. So when we want to learn something that's unknown, we have a hard time getting our head around it, like a golf swing or riding a horse or anything else that's foreign to us. We might try it a couple of times. We might like it. We might start to get some insights into it, and it improves. That's the way normally it would go. Sometimes we have a total block, and a block comes from the fact that it's asking us to step too far away from our familiar. So it requires a huge input of energy, a huge draw of energy. If we're really dedicated to it, we really want to learn it, there's enough drive there, enough will there, then the energy will flow, and you'll find that, wow, this was not easy, but I got it. I had a student that liked the idea of being an artist. I'm going to frame it that way. And he took a class somewhere in school doing some artwork. And the teacher said, "Oh, you're horrible. You should never be an artist." And he believed this teacher. And so he quit. He was taking classes from me much later in life. And we were talking about where your passions lie, right? Where your talents lie. So we had this conversation. I said, you should take up art. Take an art class and play with it again. Now that you're an adult, play with it and see what you think of it. So he did a great job. He took several art classes. Maybe a year later, he was showing me his portfolio with the pictures he drew. And I said, okay, now you're an artist. You got the idea of shading. You got the idea of depth perceptions. You've got all these things you've learned you can incorporate into these pencil sketches, and you now have a book full of them. Now, what do you want to do with your art now that you have a working relationship with it? And he looked at me and said, this takes a lot of time. I love the idea of being able to scribble things down, but it takes a lot of time. I don't know. I'll probably still play with it for a while. There are things I want to learn and maybe play a little bit with colors, color pencils, maybe some paints. But right now, it always feels like when I go to start a project, it always feels like I'm hesitant to put that much time into it. So that's telling me that he didn't have the drive or the will right then and there. Now, that doesn't mean he's not going to become an artist. That means that he's not that vested yet. You heard what he said. He's going to look into more information, something that might inspire him. My own passion for art, I thought it'd be really cool to draw. I knew people when I was 6th, 7th grade that were just amazing. They could sketch things. I worked with in college in my freshman year, I worked with a guy that would sketch pictures in a book that would rekindle for him the ideas, notes. He wouldn't take notes in a class, he'd sketch a picture. And then he reflected that picture and he'd remember all the material associated. There's no difference between that and us writing down notes. That's all symbols too. So I looked at that and I thought, wow, that's pretty fascinating. So I had that fantasy for a while that I'd maybe be an artist. But my pattern is very much proximity. So I get grossly impatient, something that takes a huge amount of time. Sitting in 1 hour class and taking notes and daydreaming a little bit and flirting with the girls, that was something I was more my style in college age. So to sit there and concentrate and draw a picture for that hour is like, no, I didn't have the patience for it. So when I started playing with art, I didn't. Now, I like the idea. I always had a passion for architecture. So I moved away from there and started drawing some pictures of architecture. So I got a drafting board. I started doing drafting plates. I actually even had a few jobs where I did some drafting. So it flowers out in a direction that you would think totally different. Now, all my drafting equipment has now, 50, 60 years later, is all decayed and broken and pieces have fallen off of it. And I finally just threw it all in the trash. And I've never replaced any of it because I don't have an investment in time in doing that, although I enjoy it. But the fact that I enjoy it and I don't invest more time into it tells you that balance sits where? Balance says it's not worth more of an investment. And that's what it takes. If I got enthused, if I got excited when I bought the home I'm living in right now, I actually got a book and drew out every page in a book a different room. I then put down electrical plugs, outlets, power, current information, window structures, size of the room, dimensions, flooring plans, colors, and paints. I logged them all in a book. So I had all the information about the house. So I could refer back through for that room, see what was going on, see what was behind a wall, see where there was an inspection plate for plumbing or something. I had that all in a book. So those are things I learned when I was more in the construction, more in the science end of things. I'm sure that book is around somewhere still. I haven't referred to it, and nor have I added things into it because I've been in this house 6 years now. So I don't have that kind of drive. If I was in it on a regular basis, then I most certainly would be doing that. The amount of energy we put into something has to do with our relationship to the effort that we're willing to, what's the end picture? What's our will statement? Our will is a volume, right? So you imagine it's like a temperature gauge, it goes up. Where's our will statement at? As it starts to move up, then we're willing to put anything into it to get really good at it, right? We're really to do anything to get really good. I see that lots of times with plateaus with golf, plateaus with any kind of a sport, that we get just so good at it. I did the same thing when I was in various different sports. I would get so good at it and I go, I lost interest. It was to get to the next level would require too much. I like photography. I like taking pictures, but to get to the next level, to take better pictures would require I get better equipment and spend a little more time at it. I take thousands of pictures now, but I'd have to take 20 or 30,000 pictures on a trip. And it's like, yeah, I'd be spending all my time just doing that. So it's balance. The answer to the question is short and sweet, is it's balance. How much of your will to drive to accomplish that goal is in there? That's what elicits more energy for you to go into it. When you hit something you don't understand and you're up against it, you put a rule up, I won't go any farther until I understand this, and that stops you. If you say, I don't understand this, but I'm going to proceed anyhow, because I really want to get this, so I'm just going to proceed. Most certainly. I kind of did that in diving. A lot of the stuff in diving I didn't quite understand. I said, what the heck? I just threw this on, threw that on, jumped in and went over there, did this, did that. And then later on, after many, many dives, I'm diving with other people, and all of a sudden they'll say something or something came up, and then all of a sudden I could remember, that's why that piece of data was there. I never understood it until later. Like, wow. Then I had to think, let's see, did I check that O-ring when I put that on? That was one of the rules. But, until I got a regulator that wasn't working, I forgot all about checking the O-ring, right? All those little things that are part of it that I didn't have a meaning for significantly. It didn't stop me. But in other fields, it has stopped me. I got, I gave up on it because there was too many variables and I couldn't quite get it all. I've done a lot of competitive shooting, but shotgun shooting, for whatever reason, shooting skeet, it always felt like I had to figure something out before I could do it. And I've talked to a lot of skeet shooters that say, you just kind of get the feel of it, get the rhythm of it. Forget all the dialogue, just kind of go with it, right? You won't have a problem, Chris. You've done a lot of shooting. Yeah, I couldn't get past that block. There was always some line going on in my head about tracking that, shooting in front of it. It seemed like a list, a checklist, rather than just a flow. So the two things that it's all a balance piece. And the two things that get you is, number one, if you have a personal view on that topic, you have to get it all before you can go farther forward. That's probably going to be an impasse for you. Later, you will get it. The cognition will come in. It'll make sense. Something will trigger it. And then you'll excel in it. But if you really got a drive for it, you'll just keep at it until it all makes sense. So, and the same with wellness code. I have to tie this back into the transcript, right? Is that there's a lot of things that we, in the first 7 months, reflected on about us that we just assumed to be. As we start to understand ourselves a little better, you start to make wiser decisions, not decisions based on familiar, which you may have learned from family, or my wife eats totally different than I do. There's nothing wrong with that. I have a whole profile from my biome I can go on, and she has one from hers. Really, different foods affect us differently, spike our insulin differently. So we come to some terms, but we'll make side dishes that suit her. We'll make side dishes that suit my eating. Has nothing to do with the flavor of the food or the taste of the food or anything along those lines. It just has to do with how our microbiome works. I think we're going to move in that direction. I think that eventually, as this knowledge gets to be out there more in the world, you're going to see more side dishes in restaurants that you're going to be able to customize menus a little bit. Rather than a hamburger with French fries, because I shouldn't be eating potatoes. So I would be better off with a hamburger and broccoli. But come on, how many hamburger places got broccoli, you know? And if you go to one of the corporate restaurants, they order a side of broccoli, you get this like 1 ounce little dish of broccoli that's usually either semi-raw or it's just steamed into mush, right? They just have no idea. So this is what we run into. It's like the world hasn't caught up to the idea of being well yet. It's basing on a model. It's basing on information. It's leading with information rather than experience in life. The way we learn is to lead with the experience in life. Go have the experience of it. See how that feels in your body. See if that kindles a passion to move forward. Don't try to figure it all out. And that will help you quite a bit. Okay? So if that makes sense, then that's what you go with. Plateaus are very normal. You're going to find that. If you're inspired, just kind of keep at it a little bit. Don't drive yourself too much where you lose interest. Kind of keep at it. Requires a little bit of time. Pretty much anything worth doing is going to take about 2 years. So that's pretty much what you're going to have vested in it. So enjoy the process. Notice how you feel. Notice how it's going for you. Notice the positive effects, because automatically we notice the negative, right? Our mind goes to analyzing all those. Remember, we got at least 9 different streams of analysis going on at the same time. And it most certainly is going to focus on all the cautious things, which is wise. So when we start to get in there, we really got to put our attention to like, okay, I haven't quite got it, but I'm better. I'm getting better. I did the same thing with archery. I got better. I did it for quite a while. I was ready to buy a compound bow, and then I didn't know if I wanted to put that much money in it, and where am I going to do it? And I can't do it in the backyard. And the story then got to be all negative, and then I lost interest in it. But when I was around open countryside, if I had 5 acres out in the country somewhere and I put bales of hay up, I'd probably go back to archery again, because it was really kind of fun. Does this all make sense? Okay. So this is how we operate. This is how we humans operate. You can lose interest in something when you're 15, 16 and pick it up again when you're 50 or 60. I've seen that happen over and over again. I've seen people come back to things kind of amazing and get really, really good at it and leave it for a while and come back to it. I sat around on a trip one time and tied knots. I used to do that eons ago when I was in Boy Scouts, and I was just braiding something with some knots. I used to do a lot of braiding. Um, I haven't probably for 50 years, right? I was pretty good at it, but I've done it for 50 years, right? Um, I can remember when I was sick and I was a kid, I used to sit around crocheting because I couldn't go outside and play. I had pneumonia. I spent a winter one time and actually made a bedspread. It was a twin size bed, but made it in little squares, and then you sew them all together. I made one of those because I had nothing else to do with pneumonia. I had pneumonia 6 times in 9 years, so I spent a lot of time with that little crochet needle around my finger trying to stay busy, do something. I'd listen to music and crocheting, listen to classical music and crocheting. That's what I did when I was 5, 6, 7 years old. So I haven't done that since I was 5, 6, or 7 years old. So this is the nature of the learning process that we get into. You got to keep the feel for it and keep going forward. When you lose that interest, then simply step back out for a while. And that's probably your best move, right? All right. So I hope that answered your question. Anyway, this is, again, Dr. Chris Lamont. Talk to you guys soon.